This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Pressure Fermentation, the good, the bad, and the ugly with Trong Nguyen from homebrewerlab.com. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 380. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, call it in to 325-305-6107 right there on the screen. And if I use your voicemail, preferably a voicemail question, but even a voicemail feedback, if I use it on a future episode, you do get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Studing, and actually, I have something to read. It's a special episode, y'all. The first time Trong was on, y'all said, "We want Trong, so I have brought him back. In case you didn't catch the first episode, Trong is a Vietnamese homebrewer and inventor making incredibly innovative products in Sacramento, California, which are available at homebrewerlab.com, such as the popular Float It, Spund It, and Picnic Tap. Trong, my friend, welcome back to the show.
Hey.
Thank you so
good
much.
Good to see you again.
It's so good to see you.
I had fun last time, so glad to be back.
I'm glad you had fun, because I had a blast, and our audience, I sent you some of the feedback. I was like, listen, Trong, we got to cut a deal. I sent my lawyer, sent your lawyer some contracts. We're going to work. No, we had a good time, and I think it was conveyed well. One of my favorite pieces of feedback that people sent me about you is that guy is so passionate about his products. And I had to tell them the reason you are is because you believe in them. Like, it's not like you wouldn't be that passionate if you weren't convinced that you are making the best stuff for whatever solution you're trying to achieve. So,
you know why so? Because I made all these things for me. first.
That's right.
And then, so they have to work. And once they work well, I share with other people. It's not like a big factory in China or something. We made it right in this room.
That's right.
Right in this kitchen.
That's right. For
my
now.
wife and I.
For now, though.
Oh, but you know what? This little place, we have shipped over 20,000 orders, pieces around the world. Little kitchen. We are the smallest exporter in California.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. No, I'm talking about if you ever need like a child labor sweatshop. I've got 3 daughters. We'll put them to work, Trong. We'll get that going. It'll be good. They work for cheap. They work for Oreos. That's how easy my kids are.
Oh, wow. So, higher.
Yeah. But hey, before we get to the interview and the meat and potatoes, friends at home, I have a little bit of housekeeping to get through, Trong, and then we'll start the interview. We did this last time. You know the whole spiel. Guys, this month right now, if you go to homebrewhappyhour.com patreon.com/homebrewhappyhour and join a recipe receiving tier of the Trub Club, you're going to get the delicious English brown ale shipped out to your doorstep at the end of the month. It's an incredible recipe. It's, it's smooth drinking. And thanks to our sponsors, Muntins, Hopsterette, and Imperial, it is literally the most premium ingredients you're going to get in a kit for $50. That's, with free shipping. You just don't get that anywhere else. So again, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Join a recipe receiving tier. Come brew with us. If y'all are watching this right now, me and Todd are on our way back from Vegas. It is Craft Brewers Conference this week. So Kolsch Cup was a couple weeks ago, but I would like to, again, like we did last week, just remind everyone that Kolsch Cup 2024 wrapped up, and congratulations to our grand champion, Jonathan Marut. Yes, that Jonathan Marut from the Marut Minute. It was all anonymous. Some people will go, y'all fixed it. No, trust me, we don't like the guy. I would have made him last place if I knew it was his entry. But kidding aside, Jonathan took it down with the just overwhelmingly highest scored Kolsch, and second place, Mark Ronnie, third place, Robert Abbott, both very close behind each other. And there wasn't that big a discrepancy between second and first, and then third and second. It was very close. Y'all sent in amazing stuff. If you're late to the party, you can still catch the videos. We published it at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. So, and again, thank you to our sponsors, Hopsterette, Muntins Malt, and Imperial Yeast. And then also, if you're late to the party and you want to catch last week's Brew Day Live, my pop and I did the English Brown Ale. You can go to youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. The video is right there. Join the fun. I think, it's so funny, Trong. I'm recording this before my dad and I are actually doing the Brew Day, because I called you up and I said, hey, I need content when I'm out of town. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't want to make a promise to you all that my dad and I did the whole Brew Day, because sometimes people are like, we want to see the mash and everything and the cool down. Guys, that's like a 4-hour day. I'm not sure I can stream that long, mostly because I'm selfish and I like to play copyrighted music, and YouTube will shut me down if I do that. So we try to do as much as possible. But anyway, call my bluff. I'm telling you right now, we did the majority of the Brew Day live over at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. And if we didn't do the majority of it after the fact, you can call me a liar. I'm okay with that. Anyway,
no,
so
we should do the real live sometimes.
Oh yeah,
because we can, with our system, we can pack the whole thing, all grain, maybe in an hour and a half, all grain.
Challenge accepted, my friend. I've told you, Trong and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it wasn't like we were going to announce this anyways. We have some ideas cooking on the back burner, you and I, of future content stuff. One of it being potentially like a monthly live stream outside of my dad and I's Brew Day Live, but doing more cooking with you on like a pot of brew, making beer, making kimchi. Well, there's a lot of stuff, but either way, that's neither here nor there, because today's episode, I brought you on. I like to get into certain subjects, Trong, and then declare myself the definitive authority on that subject. So, pressure fermentation, we've been into it for about a year. People send in questions all the time, and I'm like, I am the authority. But then I talked to you last month on the episode, and I realized, no, I'm not. Trong knows more than I do. I think you might be the expert on pressure fermentation. You, our buddy Jonathan Marut. There's a handful of y'all in my life where I'm like, okay, I don't know much. So I reached out to you and I said, Trong, I just want to cover the maybe surface level and a little bit deeper on pressure fermentation. And you said, absolutely, tell me when. So let's start off with the general question, because a lot of our audience, a ton of these guys at home and gals, are beginner brewers, maybe doing extract, and pressure fermentation isn't necessarily in their brain because they're either doing small batch bottling or it's just an overwhelming, mysterious realm of, pressure, that sounds dangerous, this or that. So, Trong, why would someone want to pressure ferment? And then why do you recommend pressure fermentation?
Okay, well, let's, the best way to start that is let me share with you my experience, my journey into brewing, home brewing. After I retired from my regular business, one day I was on Kickstarter and I saw this thing called Catalyst, and I thought it was really cool. So I backed it, and then about 6 months or so later, the thing showed up on my door. I forgot I actually did that. So I started reading back on it and started brewing my first batch. And I had a lot of fun. I was impressed with the technology. That's why the thought process, that's why I purchased this. But then when I brew it, I realized there's a lot of flaws. It's a wonderful system, but it really have missed some fundamental thing. One of it is because it's regular gravity fermenter, and at the bottom it had a conical and it had a valve, which I thought it was really cool. But when I started using it, getting the product through that conical thing, it was a problem through gravity. So I said, this is a lot better way to do pressure fermentation. So I started thinking about what is the process of doing it. Of course, to do pressure fermentation, you need a couple of things. You need a sealed vessel. You need either a keg. So at that time, I used a keg that I have, and then the next thing you need to do is you need to have to build up the pressure without blowing up the kegs. You need the pressure relief valve or the spunding valve. In fact, you don't even need the spunding valve. You actually can use the pressure relief valve with a lighted pressure on it, like maybe a 5 psi or 10 psi spring, and then you can pressure ferment it. But you minute you build up enough pressure, but then you worry about blowing it up. And why pressure fermentation then? Because with pressure fermentation, when you have pressure, you can go up instead of down. When you can go up, you can push the liquid, you pressure to put the liquid up and out. So that's meaning you save all the thing at the bottom, the conical thing. So to me, a conical valve, the best conical valve is no conical valve. Because it's absolutely unnecessary, especially at home. When in a microbrewery, big brewery, they brew 1,000 a gallon, they need to go down. They have to catch the yeast. But at home, we don't need it if we do pressure fermentation. Number one, that the benefit of you have a smaller vessel to deal with. You save a lot, or that has space. And number two, with pressure fermentation, it's safer. You seal everything up. You don't expose your beer to your wort or your beer to oxygen. Less chance for bacteria to get in because it has a positive pressure inside instead of if you think it's legal. If you do non-pressure fermentation, things could seep inside. That doesn't happen with pressure fermentation. So you need so I did that, and I started looking for a spunding valve. And boy, that was like 3-4 years ago. That was terrible. The industry was terrible. The only thing that available, I bought it from this guy online on Florida for $30 with all the brass thingy deal. And it's terrible. It doesn't work very well. So I said, well, I got to make a spunding valve. So I started looking around, and I got the spunding valve, the pressure relief valve from this company in the U.S. called Airtro. They make the best pressure relief valve for engineering, for dental, for medicine, medical industries, and hospitals, things like that. So I bought one of those on eBay cheap. It's like for $20. And then I built my own pressure relief valve from that, and it worked really, really cool. So that's how I started with pressure fermentation. So the next thing then is I had to deal with how to get the beer out of the keg. And that means getting the beer using a floating dip tube instead of regular hard dip tube. Because I read online at the time, most guys just take the hard dip tube and whack it up an inch or in a half at the bottom. And of course you can do that, but why that means you're going to waste an inch and a half of beer at the bottom of your deal. And you have to deal with the potential thing suck into clog up your poppet valve. So I got myself a floating dip tube made by caking, that part of the fermentasaurus, the plastic thing, which I also bought one. And then I went into pressure fermentation. That thing worked really cool. I mean, I able to brew in a little cake like this, and when I make my wood, I pour in the cake, I seal it. The nice thing about that too, because since I deal with a metal cake, I can put boiling hot wood in here. I seal it, and I don't worry about having to sanitize this thing. So I seal the thing. After I seal it, everything, I just leave it there for the heat to kill everything, and then to chill it, I just toss it in my swimming pool. Everything is sealed, right? So I throw my swimming pool, and 20 minutes later, I fish it out. I hose it down to get the chlorine off the exterior, and then of course now the thing have a vacuum. So I made a little thing that had a syringe filter, a 0.22 micron syringe filter, and I popped it on. I popped this onto the gas line, the gap valve. So of course, to break the vacuum, because there's a vacuum in there now, I cannot open it. If I open it, I cannot open it. If I open it too quickly, dirty air could fly in, right? So I just pop this guy onto the gas line, and the air begin to suck in by the vacuum, and of course it go through a syringe filter. It's so small, even virus cannot go through it, 0.22 micron. So it take a little time to suck it in. And one that neutralize it, one that equalize with the air pressure, I can open the valve, and then I can stick my stick in to aerate the wood. Then I pitch my yeast. I put on my spunding valve with my homemade spunding valve that I made, and with the floating dip tube already in there. And a week later, the fermentation stopped. I have beer, and I stick the whole thing in the refrigerator, and I just force carpet a little bit, because my beer at that point already pretty much partially carbonated, and I tap and I drink beer.
And you're happy.
and fast. It's so easy. I mean, of course, that was very rudimentary, but I made it work really well. And I love it because I can brew in a 2-3 gallon cake like this. I can brew 2 gallons. And then later on, I can get a 2.5 gallon, even smaller. I brew 2 gallons. And then I make modification. I added these things, and the long and short of it is, my friends found out about it. They said, "Can I make it for them?" I made it for them, and then people start from far away email me, want to buy it. So I sell it to them. I put it on eBay. I sell it. I think that, I sell it all over the world. So that the rest is the story.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. I love the story. And you went over the equipment, but I want to isolate each piece. So like the first kind of topic or discussion I had written down after kind of that intro, because I'm interested to pick your brain on what you think, or what is, not even just your opinion, what is the necessary equipment for pressure fermentation? Because it's not, I mean, I'll do a spoiler. You have to have a vessel that can handle pressure. You don't want a glass carboy and say, we're pressure fermenting today. So what is the equipment necessary to pressure ferment?
Well, if you start out at home, if you want to get in this, it's really, really easy. And remember, I'm in California. You can always contact me by text me, and I help you. I guarantee you, if you do pressure fermentation with me, with my help, you will never go back. So guarantee. So you get yourself, if you start out, you go get yourself a keg, a 20 keg. You can buy one from Facebook Market for any garage sale, and you're usually going to find it for 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks. Make sure it's sealed. So you got yourself a 20 keg, right? And then you get a floating dip tube. You don't have to get one from me. You can get from anyone cheap. You can buy one for about $10, $15, and you get from Alibaba for maybe $8 or something. And, it doesn't matter. You get you to have a floating dip tube. And then, if you, as I said before, you don't need a spunding valve. You get one of those safety relief valves that go on top of the keg with a slide spring so that you can only hold the pressure to 5 or 10 psi. Right? Then, now you're ready to go. See, that's all you need. You make your wort in the regular, the good old way, the way you can make it, and then you pour that wort into your cake and you seal it, and then you're ready to go. So you need to sum it up, you need a sealed vessel, you need a floating dip tube so that you can go up and out, right? So, and you can draw from the top so you clear beer, so that you don't waste any beer. You start sooner. Number two, you need a spunding valve. Any spunding valve that you can buy on the market, the flow tie is a very popular option. And they sell 1 million of those, and that's good enough for you. And then what else you need? I don't think that's the three things. You need the vessel, and then you need some way to drink the beer. So another nice thing about pressure fermentation versus the old way, when you don't need to do the secondary. So you do the secondary basically you do the secondary right into your fermenter. So when you're done, your beer is ready to go. You can transfer it to another keg if you want to, or you can also do secondary in the second keg if you want to. You do close transfer, meaning the beer doesn't expose to air. And you use pressure to push it. And you do need some sort of CO2 gas to supplement, to augment your fermenter, to do additional carbonation. So you need a sealed vessel, you need a floating dip tube, you need a pressure relief valve, and you need some sort of CO2 source, whether any kind that you can get a hold of. If you can make CO2 source, I can teach you how to make your own CO2.
I love it.
And then, of course, you need a tap to get the beer out, and you can get a regular picnic tap. What you've seen, you can buy the corporate tap or whatever those things. You can use that, and it works just well. But that's all you need. And now, you don't have to do with that. You don't have to do bottling. You don't have to do secondary fermentation. You can do close transfer. You have all the benefits of, to me, in home fermentation, home brewing. The nice thing about pressure fermentation is that with some yeast, for example, the characteristic of pressure fermentation is that you can ferment at somewhat higher temperature with some yeast that can sustain higher temperature, like lager yeast. It can go higher than the standard 55, 60 degrees. You can go 5 or 7 or 10 degrees higher and still having a good clean lager at the end. You can ferment so higher pressure. You can higher temperature. You can go temperature just high. The pressure can be as high as the yeast can handle. Some yeast can handle 75 degrees at the upper range, but under fermentation pressure with the 15 psi, you can add another 5 degrees Fahrenheit to it. Now, if you use Kavik yeast, it can go to 90 degrees. So you can ferment up to 90 degrees, so the fermentation is very fast. Now, if you add pressure, you can go even higher than that, but there's no need to. So the limit is how high the temperature is. It depends on what type of yeast you use. And for the pressure, typically 15 psi is all it takes. Because if you go higher than that, you reduce the metabolic activity of your yeast. They don't divide as fast, or they don't convert, they don't ferment as well. But you have to go like above 40 psi for that to happen. So that the wrap up of pressure fermentation. So all you need is really somewhere to make wood, and you need an old cheap old keg, a floating dip tube, a spunding valve, some sort of injection tube, and a cheapo corporate tap to get your beer out, and you're done.
Run the credits. That was the episode. Yeah. You covered everything. Yeah. Okay. This is the Tron show. No, no, I do actually. No, I'm going to extrapolate because that's what I do. Todd says I just draw out questions too long, but that's the point of the show, guys. We're trying to get info. Rewinding a little bit because I have some questions about equipment. Like you said, so I'm no stranger to spunding valves. Well, first off, the vessel. Let's talk about the vessel. Are you a fan of the keg versus a plastic pressure rated fermenter because of the convenience of doing everything in the keg, or is stainless just going to last longer in its integrity? Because there are plastic fermenters. Like I use a Firmzilla from Kedland, from our friends at More Beer, and they links will be here. Everything Trong was talking about, if you're in the show notes, whether you're listening on your favorite audio app or at youtube.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. And then I do have to admit, Trong, you were being way too nice about not saying your own products. You were trying to be flattering to others and telling people, oh, you could get it at Facebook. I edited all of that out to include, you can get it at kegconnection.com. I'm kidding. But really, but you can get it at kegconnection.com with promo code HHH and 5% off your order. Anyway, sales pitch done. Stainless versus plastic. Is it a matter of convenience, or do you prefer one over the other for the vessel for a specific reason?
So a couple of things. This is my tenet of home brewing. Never use glass for fermenter because it's very dangerous. It's too heavy, especially for an old guy like me. To haul a big old jar with 5 gallons of beer around. So never glass and never plastic. Doesn't matter what they say. You say why? I tell you why. Because with plastic, for pressure fermentation, by law, you have to recertify those plastic every so many years, and you have to do hydro test it. Now, it's not that difficult to do, but you have to set up to do that. And I can do that. I did that once. I don't like it. Why do I have to go through this rigmarole of fill up this 5 gallon or 7 gallon of water, pressurize it to certain thing, and hopefully it doesn't blow on my face, and and flood up my basement or my garage or my kitchen or whatever, and I hope it works. And number two, with plastic, you cannot put hot water in it. If you put hot water, it do crazy thing. And you remember, I'm the hippie guys. I don't like to use chemical. As much as I could. So I want to use heat to sterilize things. I can't put hot water. If you put just lukewarm water in your fermenter, you see what happens. It becomes like jelly. You push a thing and it's weird. Number two, if you're not careful, you do pressure fermentation. Now we're talking about pressure fermentation. And when your cold crashes, unless you have enough pressure in it, that thing becomes a crushed.
It collapses.
Thing.
Yeah, it collapses.
It collapses.
Yeah.
It's collapsing in a very, very, actually, vacuum is a hell of a lot more powerful than pressure. A crazy thing happened to vacuum when it developed. So I have something that I have to show you.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your time.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, I will juggle spunding valves.
Now, the other day, I had a 5 liter of olive oil, right? So I only use half of it. I made you half. So I thought, well, I don't want air in here. See, I'm really allergic to oxygen. I mean, the only thing that oxygen is good is for my lungs. Like it ruined my food, it ruined my coffee, it ruined my beer, it ruined my wine, it ruined everything. So then there's a space in here. So I said, well, I'm not going to use it for a few days. So I filled it with CO2 gas, right? So to push the air out, and to put a cap on it, right? So I put it outside, and it happened, it get cold. So when the next time I go get it, look what happened. Did you see it?
Wow. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it started collapsing.
It's not collapse because when it gets cold, the CO2 gas kind of contract, and some of them actually go to the olive oil. 1% of it go to olive oil. So that's what happened. So this remind me that so if you do a plastic thing, you're gonna have to be careful. You cannot wash it with hot water. You cannot cold crash it. Without enough pressure, because it's going to collapse, and it's very easy to susceptible to scratching, on the inside surface, and the micro scratches can harbor bacteria and other things. So what? You're going to replace it sometime. It's easy to damage. So the only nice thing about plastic fermenter is that it's really fun to watch the fermentation inside, man, because at the peak fermentation, it's like a hurricane inside.
It is very cool. It is very cool.
You see everything is flying all over direction.
I love it.
I should watch hours for that thing. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, so I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it's not an opinion. It's true what he's saying about plastic and collapsing. But my process, and where I would say the benefit of the keg is that it's all done in that one you're streamlining your process between fermentation and drinking your beer, where my process is slightly complicated, and I'm using air quotes, guys, for complicated, because it's not like it's super hard, but I go from the Firmzilla to a keg to cold condition because one, my Firmzilla won't fit in my fridge, but two, also because I am terrified of pressurized vessels exploding or collapsing. The collapse it would be awful in my fridge to have a whole batch wasted, basically. But so yeah, the vessel, like you said, glass, never. Like never glass. If you secondary in a glass carboy, I think they say 3 psi is the most to put on it if you're going to, with one of those little orange cap things they make. I don't do it at all. Todd does that. I don't do it at all. I think it's too dangerous. But then the next part of the equipment, floating dip tube. Obviously, I'm now no stranger to the Float It. This is it off of the line, guys, if you're watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. This is it without the line on it, but you can, Tron sends it with the standard dip tube. And then also I was lucky enough to receive the Matt's Headspace dip tube. The floating dip tube, whether it's the Float It or it's like one of these old, the classic ones. I think this one was also from More Beer, very, very, and I say very affordable. It's actually only like $10 cheaper than the Float It. I don't think it's that big a difference, but the quality is different. So could you talk about the role the floating dip tube plays, why you made the Float It, and kind of why everyone has to have a floating dip tube if you're going to use pressure fermentation?
Yes. Okay. When you do pressure fermentation, looking at the vessel like a body of a human, right? So the spunding valve is like the lung. It controls the pressure, right? And if something happens to it, you can fix it on the outside. You can pull it up, the spunding valve, adjust and sort of thing. Now, the floating dip tube, on the other hand, is like your circulatory system. I mean, your vessel, your artery, anything like that inside. So anything happen to it, you have to open it up to go inside and fix it. So shit happen when you do pressure fermentation with floating dip tube. All right, thing like the fluid doesn't position itself well, so that the intake tube is over the liquid line. So what happens is the pressure will push into the liquid, it put foam out. Right? So that when that happens, you can never try to shake it as much as you can to repressurize it. Because the reason for that is unless you position correctly, the tubing that you have, it becomes like a float because it's full of air. So it's full of air, so it means it's going to push the thing higher. Number one, so that's a problem. Number two is at the end of the like you said, during fermentation, the thing happen, a lot of things flying around inside. So if you want to get a sample, you're going to suck out all the particle and yeast and things like that. You clog your poppet valve. So you have to deal with it somehow. But we talk about that later. But the next thing is at the end, having a floating D2 with the dangling inlet. The dangling inlet is, this is the ball floats, and you see how the inlet is right in line with that. So that thing will go hit the trap at the same time. This is the dangling thing. This is the thing. I don't know if you've seen the little old ring thing, the thing with the tube and with thing hang. This thing hang down here. So if the liquid level on top of here, the inlet will already hit the trap. You have again 1.5 inch a beer at the bottom that you cannot take out, because if you take out, it's gonna suck in all the trap to clog your poppet valve. So that's another problem. Now, it's not a big a deal when the diameter of your fermenter is small, but you have a big like one of those big plastic deal. That's a lot of beer. 1 or 2 inches of level at the bottom is a lot of beer.
It's a lot of beer
to be wasted. So that problem number 2, and of course we have to figure a way to get all the beer we can. So we have a double filter. With double filter, and to be really efficient, we make it 2 stage. It's a stage on the first stage is 5 micron, and the second stage is 300 micron. So it's really, really efficient for the size, and it's been proven we probably have over 10,000 of these things used worldwide, and the filtering system we've done. We beat it to bed. It worked. The arrangement, the size, that thing worked really well. So that with the double filter, it allows you to take sample without worry about clogging your poppet valve. It allows you to drink from the very first pour, because everything goes out is double filter. It allows you to take all the beer, remove all the beer from your fermenter. So that's why we call it no beer left behind floating dip tube, because when you finish, you open the keg, you look in there, holy cow, no beer left behind. You see, so that's why the floating dip tube is. So I think the floating dip tube is the most important part of pressure fermentation. You don't need, as I said before, you don't need a spunding valve. You should need the low pressure spring for your safety valve, and that can work as a spunding valve for your system.
Right, and you told me that when I first reached out to you, because I got to float it off Amazon, and then you graciously sent me one, and I will say, so I've only used floating dip tubes in my fermentation vessel, in the Firmzilla. It comes with it, and it is great, the old style ball, and just a little porthole to suck up the wort or the beer, pardon me, at that point that I'm transferring. But I agree with what you're saying. If it's at a weird angle, or if it's caught up in a little bit of residual krausen or whatever, it doesn't. The old school ones are reasonably affordable. Well, floated's affordable too. What is it on Amazon at the $30, 25?
Yeah, $25 plus $4 shipping.
Yeah,
so $29.
Yeah, so rounding up $30, where these are like 17 or 15 with and then shipping too. But my point being, though, I have had to keep an eye on the flow. That way, if I see crap, I'm like, okay, unhook it, because I don't want that going into my keg. It could be terrible. I haven't used the floated on a fermenter, which I'll ask a question about that in a little bit. But I want to say before my question, we have it on our keg of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, a clone of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale my dad and I brewed for last month's Brew Day Live. And I took the keg over there. I fashioned this on a floating dip tube lid, and I'll get to that too in a little bit, but because I'm lazy and I don't want to modify my kegs. So I fashioned it on one of these at the end. I put, obviously it's clean, and I sanitized it. And then I transferred the beer into that keg through the existing liquid dip tube that I didn't modify. This is on the lid, and I took it over there on like a My dad would have to correct me in the comments. I want to say it was like on a Friday, because by that Sunday when we tried it, the first pour, as bright as could be. That is what made me a believer of the filtration method you're using on the Float It. When I was like, every pour we're doing, because we don't drink every day. I'm only over there a couple times a week at tops, most of the time once a week. Those taps are being poured maybe twice a week. So if there's 4 or 5 days in between, normally we'd have to off the top pour, a few ounces out and then start pouring. No, I don't have to anymore. It's great. The very first pour we're doing, it is good, clear beer. I was very impressed. So I guess my question off of this is, one, am I going to mess anything up with this lid modification that I'm doing? Because again, for me, it is I'm lazy and don't want to modify the dip tube on my keg. And also using the lid makes it more versatile to me, because now I can use it on any keg. I don't have to go find that floating dip tube keg, because I have a ton of kegs. So
that is really wise for you to make that. I'm impressed. You can figure that out. And also I'm impressed the fact that you can fit a small silicone tubing into that 5/16 or 8 millimeters standard metal dip tube.
I did. Is that bad? Am I breaking it?
No, that's great. That's great. Our silicone tubing, medical grade silicone. So the most expensive is the best in the industry. Most people don't even do that, but I do it because why not? I make the best. I want to use all the best,
That's
right?
That's right.
So it can stretch anything. But the problem, you have to remember silicone, and you put silicone in acid, it's going to harden over time. But beer is a little acidic. So over time, but it takes a long time. But with the medical grade silicone tubing, it lasts even longer. So and it's stretch, the better stretch, and then rips often. Silicone is very susceptible to tearing.
Yeah. So look, I'm doing it right now. Look at that, right live on air. See, I got it on there.
Easy for you to do that because you do outside. Try to do that inside.
Oh no, that's why. Yeah, right. That's why I like the lid, because I can do this all before there's beer.
Yeah, I want to mention another thing, that one of the reason I make my own silicone dip tube is really I could not try to fit the silicone tubing into the metal dip tube like you just did in second.
Yes.
It took me 10, 15 minutes trying to do this. I literally try to figure, and by then I contaminate my cake like crazy because I stick my arm and everything. I get frustrated. So that's why I make my floating dip tube so that you can go through the thing without your arm inside. Yeah. Now, for those who don't want to do what you do, I made one version. Do you see this?
Yeah. Let me put it big on the screen. Go ahead.
This thing is the double filter inlet, the 500 and 300 micron attached to the ball float, so that you can use your from Zilla, from Antasaurus, floating dip tube, you can convert it to that. And in the back of here, I have an adapter so that you can easily connect your larger tube into, you see, my tube is only 6 millimeter. The industry use 8 millimeter. So this is an adapter from 6 to 8 millimeter, so people can use your existing 8 millimeter tubing. So you can get this for $15 I sell. So because you already have the float, the ball float, you have the tubing, and you can get this. They call it the double filter inlet for ball float. Sell it on eBay and Amazon for $15.
Now, someone did ask me, because I've been, since our interview the last time, which has been when this publishes about a month, a little bit over. Someone did ask me, well, it's all good and dandy, but what if Trong disappears and goes out of business and I need to replace my filter? Are these parts, I know you carry these now, right? I mean, this is, and what is like the average length or batches of beer you're finding people getting out of these before they have to do any replacement?
Those are 304 stainless steel. They're never, unless you sit on it, it never it doesn't die. It doesn't get rusted or it lasts forever. And number two, when we sell the thing, we sell the two to cap at the ends, and we call those a showstopper caps. Because if you lose one, it's a showstopper. So I give people, because I ship these things all over the world, and they cannot find it. So everything I ship, we ship with some unique spare parts that you cannot find locally. So they come with a 2 spare showstopper cap, and then I want to make sure that people get the most benefit of the pressure fermentation. Including for free what I call the shorted 14 millimeter long. I call it max headroom dip tube.
Yeah.
See, the max headroom dip tube, because I thought the name is so cool. Remember TV series in the 80s about this crazy guy, the AI presenter on TV, a max headroom. So I said, but this thing, the perfect name for this thing, because it gives you the maximum headroom, because it's really short. You get all the way to the roof of your fermenter or your keg, right? And also it's a nice marketing thing, because every time you drive under an overpass, you will see the word max period headroom.
That's right. You did that on the, I like that. You put that same little, max. I like that.
Your max headroom. So it's a really cool name for it. And that's free. Most gas dip tube are 1.5 inches long. So you lose about 3/4, 1 inch long of headspace.
Yeah.
So that free. Now, at the end of this year, toward the end of this year, of my powder brew, we come in making the floating dip tube the ultimate, and we're going to name floating dip tube 2.1 super floating dip tube, because we add a flow control into a floating dip tube.
No way.
So you don't need beer line anymore, man.
No way.
No beer line necessary, because we already built in the flow control in our floating dip tube. So what else do you need a floating dip tube? You get floating dip tube to give you the maximum headroom, and have the double filter, so you don't have the clotted poppet valve. You can drink everything you come out with in a double filter. You don't have no beer left behind, and you need no beer line. So it's $10 more than the regular guy, but you look at what you get. You get the max headroom gas dip tube. Man, I sound like Popeel guy.
I love it, dude. I love it. I love it because, like I said, so far, all these things he's mentioning are going to be available at kegconnection.com. But I love it because you're just trying to streamline the whole experience, so that way, not that like you're going to tell someone, well, what's your excuse now? But you're just saying like some people, like in my garage right here, I have my beer fridge. I don't have a kegerator. I don't have drilled out with faucets. Don't get me wrong, I love those though, because they're beautiful to look at. Or a tower kegerator, they're beautiful. But a lot of people, apartment living, or they just don't want to spend the money. They're cheap guys like me. I have to open my fridge door. I do like the flow control vent faucet that I use, because I can force carbonate in real time, and I can, when I'm using it for forced carbonation, and I can serve my sparkling water off of my tap. If you tried serving sparkling water with a Cobra tap, it's disastrous once you get above 20 psi. It starts leaking everywhere. So I do like the flow control vent faucet. But for you're saying like the picnic tap that you're currently using now as the solution for no beer line, the thought process is that way it is as compact a space as possible, and people that are limited on space can add that on their keg, and boom, serving their beer and not having problems.
Yes, that's it. But we're going to do it even better. We're going to include that into our floating dip tube, so that you can use your Cobra. The only thing you have to deal with the dripping, all right? And the Cobra thing drip like crazy. And that make me actually go back to why I created my picnic tap, because my wife hated it. I couldn't get beer in the refrigerator because I'm going to make a mess in the refrigerator. So I have to figure out a way to make a tap that does not drip. So then that's why I created the picnic tap. This guy has the flow control built into it, and this guy has it doesn't drip, and the thing really small. It's really easy. It's lightweight, it doesn't have a lot of thermal mass, so it doesn't take a lot of beer to cool it down. Because, cold beer doesn't like warm tap. If you run cold beer through warm tap, it's not going to foam like crazy until the tap is cooling down. Most tap are big, massive, I call hung of metal tap, so it is, and usually the tap sit in the room temperature, right? So if you don't pour it too often, like in the tap room, you pour it every couple of hours or every couple of days, the first like 4 or 5 ounces of beer is foam. Because the beer has to cool down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And and by the way, beautiful C.M. Becker distillate. By the way.
You guys made it for me because I cannot use the regular the disconnect because our disconnect is custom. That may you see this. This thing has the flow control, and the flow control, I have the fireplace for the whole control, and the best place for the flow control is inside the disconnect. But in order to do that, you have to customize it so that I can insert my compact progressive flow reducer in. And thanks to Todd and James.
It's James.
And James to convince Germany to make them for me.
I was going to say, Todd, no, not throwing Todd under the bus. You're a great boss. No, that was James. James is the man. He gets stuff done. So we talked about the vessel. We've talked about the floating dip tube. The next component that you went over when you were discussing it, the spunding valve. And like you said, at very minimum, you can get a replacement spring for that kegs pressure relief valve, and that would act as a spunding valve if you got like a 10 psi spring or whatever. But, like a lot of us, we like gadgets or whatnot. There are a slew of spunding valves available. The one you mentioned, the blow tie, I have that. You mentioned a metal brass one. I have a metal brass one like that from my friends at Anvil. But then also, I just got my hands on the Spundit. Let's talk about this piece of equipment, not just the Spundit, but spunding valves, what their purpose is, and why it's also part of the list of equipment you're going to need when you're pressure fermenting.
Well, the spunding valve is really a fun thing to use because different from floating dip tube, they're very essential, but you don't see it. The spunding valve is on the outside, and you're able to adjust. You need to be able to adjust the pressure precisely because different time of fermentation, you need to control the pressure for your benefits. Let me explain why this is important. When people are making IPA, they want to do dry hopping. When you do dry hopping, people worry about they open up the fermenter and then the air go in while they dry hop. Now, if you do pressure fermentation, of course, what you can do, I typically do in the first 2 days, I ferment at 5 psi. For the benefit of we talked before, the positive pressure doesn't get in, air oxygen doesn't get in for the first, but only 5 psi. Why? Because I know that I have to reduce it down when I open my fermenter to dry hop. Now. And when I open it, I don't want air to get in. So I need to build that 5 psi of CO2 pressure so that my beer get partially carbonated enough that after I reduce the pressure, I open the keg lid or the lid of my fermenter, the CO2 gas, the CO2 that have been diffused in the previous 2 days, now will come out of solution because the pressure is no longer 5 psi. There's an atmospheric pressure. So CO2 gas will always try to come out of solution unless you force it in by pressure and let you chill it down. The two things that make CO2 gas stay in liquid is pressure and temperature, right? So when you open this out, atmospheric pressure, CO2 gas will come out of the words, create a positive pressure, allow you keeping air to go back in. So in the few seconds you need to do, that enough pressure built inside the positive pressure of CO2 gas that air cannot get in while you put the dry hop in there. So now, but that's a theory. That sounds really good, but can we prove it? And I did prove it. What I did prove it I have the most expensive scientific optical oxygen detector. It's really cool. I mean, this is something that it's a fiber optic deal that you have a little chip of a chemical that under CO2 pressure, with CO2, if you shoot a certain wavelength, 350 micron nano wavelength through that thing, it doesn't glow, because the CO2, the oxygen keep it from glowing. And if it's without CO2, it glows. So you measure the brightness of this thing and you calculate it. This is made by German people that are really, really, really good. And so I measure the headspace of my fermenter before I open it. Maybe the oxygen level of the headspace before I open the dry hop. And during the dry hop, whether the oxygen level increases or not, and it does not increase. I have to leave it there for 5 minutes before I begin this oxygen level in the headspace rise a little bit. So that is what I said before, proven, because it actually, we measure it. We measure the oxygen level in the headspace of my fermenter before and during the dry hops method that I just described. Additionally, during active fermentation, even if you get a little oxygen in there, it's no problem, because the yeast will eat it all up, clean it all up. Because yeast love oxygen.
Yeah.
Because yeast eat oxygen to make more yeast. So if there is any oxygen in there, it's gonna eat it up. So there's no problem with dry hop under pressure fermentation. So that's the reason that we adjusted to 5 psi for today. Now, after, another thing too is the moment you throw the dry hop, pellet hop in there, more CO2 gas will come out of solution because the process called nucleation, all the million little tiny thing, the particles of the hops, the CO2 gas will cling to it and jump out of solution. So it creates, if you're not careful, it can create a lot of foam, because the CO2 gas come out at once. So after we put the cafe back, we adjust the pressure up to 15 psi, and then we let it ferment with 15 psi until the end. Now, if we have enough head space, we can control it so that we release as little CO2 gas out of our fermenter as possible. Why? To save the CO2 gas, to carbonate your beer, and to save any escape gas during fermentation after dry hop is loss of aroma, right? That all the hop lumber in your hop will be lost through any expelled gas. So we do that to preserve the hop flavor, and also do it to preserve the CO2 gas to carbonate your beer. So having a good spunding valve, and you can adjust precisely, is nice thing. But when you adjust the spunding valve, you really don't know where it is, because you can't see anything, right? So the only thing is you can adjust it. Number one, you need to figure out a way to kind of reset it before. If you say you want to adjust 5 psi, where do you start? Yeah. So we build in, that our spunding valve had the color marking on it.
Yeah.
So that you can green at 5 psi. You turn it to green to 5 psi, and you can plug it in. So now you let the pressure build up. As the pressure build up, and you can see the pressure through the gauge, right? We see the pressure reading through the gauge, and then, but you don't even know is the pressure on the way to 5 psi or past psi. You don't know, because you just look at the gauge. So hence we create the thermometer. The thermometer
I got one too.
The thermometer it allow you to see when the pressure is reached. If the gauge reach 5 psi and the bubble show up, you say, okay, I'm at 5 psi now, right? If the bubble doesn't show up, I'm not there yet, right? The needle, and you can also see how fast the bubble goes. So you see that I'm really way past 5 psi because it's going crazy in there. So then you crank it up a little to yellow. You want to 10 psi. You crank it up to yellow, and the bubbling now stop. The bubbling only show up again when the bubbles show up. When the bubbles start showing up, and you don't know whether it's showing up at 7 psi or 8 psi, but you check the gauge. You say, okay, it's bubbling showing up now, but only 8 psi. I need some more. So you crank it up a little more. And the sooner you crank it up a little more, the bubbling stops. All right? And then pretty soon, the pressure build up to 10 psi, and the bubbling start again. I said, okay, I'm bubbling start again. See what the reading right now. So you correlate between the reading on the pressure gauge and the bubbling activity of your thermometer. So this thing is, I cannot live without it.
I love it.
I can't believe that people have spunding valve without this. Number one, during fermentation for days, there's nothing you can do in the can. So the only thing you can see what happened inside is through this.
And to correct me if I'm wrong, again, even though I am the foremost internet expert on pressure fermentation and spunding valves now, these other ones, the blow tie, the only thing that I know that I'm near is when the hiss is a little bit of hiss. Right? Like that's the only way that you can tell, like, okay, I mean, obviously the gauge reading too, but the gauge reading on the two I have, they're accurate enough, but they seem to creep a little. I'm interested in how you think you solve that with the Spundit, because this does look like an overkill of a device, but I'm trusting that you did it because of accuracy or the desire for accuracy.
It's the best available. It's made in America. It's made in Wisconsin. You know, they're freaking the best. They're pretty expensive though. You know, that sucker, if you go on Amazon, you look for air trough pressure relief valve, you'll be amazed how much they charge. $30, $39. You see? So that's the most expensive part. I make very little profit making the spunding valve, the Spundit. That's why I don't list it on eBay. I don't list it on Amazon anymore, because people, they want to buy, they buy from my website. Because I don't have to. If I sell it on those websites, I have to raise the price, and I don't want to raise the price. So that thing is really, the reason it's so good because of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is so well built, and the regulator mechanism is so well built that I'm very proud to use that, and I'm so proud. That's one of the best. You know, those guys been making that for years, and they're very, very popular, but they're very little known outside. It's really not good. That spunding valve is not good for, even though it's very good, very precise, but really not good for beer brewing. You know why? Because the way they make it, they seal everything. If you buy it from them directly anywhere, they come and seal. You cannot take it apart. The reason they do it because they're so precise. They want to make sure it stays precision, and they go to scientific and medicine, medical industry. They don't want people to fool around with it. But for beer people, shit happen when you brew beer, right? So I cannot use the way it is. I have to design. I want it precision, but I use that practicality for beer brewing, which means I have to make it so that you can take it apart and clean it. So I contact the company and say, can you make it for me so that I can take it apart? I say, no, we don't want to do that. So okay, well, can you let me do it? It took me a long time for me to convince them, just like it took me a long time to convince C.M. Becker to make the disconnect for me. So finally they're like, okay, no, we'll let you do that. And I have to design the way it is. So right now, that spunding valve, even they don't have it. If you call Airco right now, you want to buy it, we don't have it. They said, I don't know how Trong did it, but so you can take it all apart and clean and put it back together. You know, with the Airco spunding valve. And now it's is suitable for home brewing now because we can take it apart and clean it.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it's only available at homebrewerlab.com. All the links for everything we're talking about in the show notes below. Tron, we've got the vessel. We've talked about the floating dip tube. We've talked about the spunding valve. The last part I really want to go over is assuming people are going to transfer to another keg for as their secondary or their serving keg or all of the above. What is the process of transferring from a pressurized keg to another keg? What are the best practices to set on the receiving keg? Do you need to purge it beforehand? It obviously has to be clean and sanitized. Should you set it at a certain pressure? Does it have to be equal? All the kind of tips that you would give to people as they're transferring from one keg to another using pressure.
Oh, Joshua, I'm so glad you asked this question, because that is a very, very important question, the very aspect of pressure fermentation. So you can do close transfer. You do close transfer to either to another keg or to a growler or to a bottle. Those things represent its own challenges. For if you transfer to another keg, it's important that second keg, of course, clean and sanitized, right? But also free of air. Right, so when your beer go in there, it just, again, you do all this work to keep your beer away from air, from oxygen. Now you transfer into an environment that's full of air. It's no good either. So you have to push all the air out of the keg when you're going to transfer to. Of course, the best way to transfer is CO2 gas, and some people do the craziest thing. They fill that thing full of star sand, and push to now it's CO2 gas so that they can have a clean environment. That is crazy. That's so wasteful. So what you can do is, because you do pressure fermentation, doing pressure fermentation, you're gonna shoot out a lot of gas. You direct that gas into the sucker, the keg where you're gonna transfer. So instead of putting spunding valve on the gas post of your fermenter, you put the spunding valve on the gas of your receiving keg, and you connect from the gas of the fermenter to the liquid line of your receiving keg. So the CO2 gas will go through from your fermenter, go down to the bottom of your receiving keg, go up and come out of your spunding valve. So basically, you create the heel head space. You extend the heel head space of your fermenter from here to the whole entire keg. So by the time you're done, and I calculated, you have enough. If you do a 5-gallon keg, you can do it for 3 kegs. You have enough CO2 gas to do 3 kegs. Remember, I have a way to measure oxygen, right? So I can validate it. I can measure the oxygen in every keg until the thing clear. Then I move to the next keg. I move the jumper to the next keg. So I end up having 2 or 3 keg clean, sanitized, free of full of CO2 gas, ready to receiving, right? So that's for the kegs. So during pressure, when you do the transfer, it's actually pretty simple. You connect from the liquid line to the liquid line of the second of the receiving end, and then you just adjust the pressure. You make sure the pressure on this side is higher than the pressure on the other side, and then you can push the beer, go here from the fermenter into your receiving. The nice thing too with the spunding valve that I have with the spunded, sometimes you do the transfer, you don't know how fast it goes, right? So since you got a thermometer, and you can put the spunding valve on the gas line, the gas post of the receiving keg. On this side, you connect the gas to your pressure CO2 source. You can adjust how high pressure it goes from here, so how fast the beer go, but you don't see how it flows, but you can see the bubbling activity in your fermenter. So you say, I want to go faster. You increase the pressure on your fermenter, and you watch the bubble. If the bubble is going real fast, you can slow it down because you can actually see the flowing of your beer during transfer with this guy, with the Spunding and the thermometer. So
brilliant.
That's another benefit. Now, so that's for the keg. Transfer that into a bottle is a little challenging, but we solved that too. It's really, really easy. Remember, one of the problems of transfer beer to a bottle is foaming. If the beer flowing too fast, it should create a lot of foam in your bottle. And when you create a lot of foam in the bottle, it takes a lot of time. You waste a lot of time and waste a lot of beer. So I create what I call a cheap and cheap bottle filler. You can attach this thing. you can. This is a cheap and cheap adapter. You can attach. I don't know. You can set this thing to this, to a long tubing, and then because you can adjust the flow, you can adjust the flow by the amount of pressure and the built-in flow control reducer. So then you can flow beer. I just spilled some beer the other day. I can show you. This is a bottle of beer that I filled. There's only this has space in here, and this is filled with the cheap and cheer things.
That's beautiful. And this is a great time to remind people too, that are listeners only, because that's the vast majority of our audience. Another episode, if Trong is on the show, you should go to to youtube.com/homebrew happy hour, because it's very visual heavy. We've been showing all this pieces of equipment. He's showing the beer he bottled. What did you bottle that? And that's a swing top, like a Grolsch style. Did you bottle that to share, or are you bottling now? Because I didn't think you were a bottler.
No, I didn't think. I'm not a big fan. I never bottled until very recently, because I want to, when I ferment it, when the beer is done, the finish, and I know that because my beer is very young and the yeast is very young, so I want to make some more beer quickly. I just transfer to bottle. It's so easy let's see how it pours. Right now, I fermented. I bottled it a few days ago. So this is the beer that I bought it with me.
Was that the brew day that you just did?
The brew day I did about a couple of weeks ago.
Taste testing it.
Perfect.
I love it.
Carbonated, fully carbonated, and you can do it with ease. All you need to do is put your bottle into the freezer, chill the bottle in the freezer, put the floating, the cheap and cheap bottle filler in the freezer to keep everything cold, and then you adjust this pressure down is low enough so that you can have good result. I also have a secret thing that I'm going to create a cheap and cheap counter pressure bottle filler too, and that because you see, I'm cheap, right? I'm an old guy. I grew up in Vietnam. During what I like to call it, I use Ho Chi Minh Trail technology to solve problems. Like during the war back in the day when the North and the South, North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese fought each other, and the North Vietnamese bring all their troops through the jungle. They call it Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they move the thing on bicycle and bamboo. They use those things, and they actually won the war. They actually kicked American out of South Vietnam by that, But so I always tell people I always love to use Ho Chi Minh Trail technology. Use the cheapest, the simplest, and the most clever way to get things done.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite. That's my favorite part.
I love the word cheap and cheap. Actually, I trademarked it, and then everything I do is cheap and cheap. Cheap and good.
I love it, dude. We are going to launch our own Home Shopping Network channel here soon. I love it, and that's not all. I love it, and like I said, guys, last time I promised, because we're about to wrap up. I've already taken enough of his time this week, but everything's available at homebrewerlab.com or kegconnection.com. The stuff is in the links below. Trong has been such a gracious guest, and like I said, we have been. For about a month, you and I have been throwing ideas back and forth. We are going to try to start a once a month live stream once you've got, you are such a perfectionist in a good way that I'm flattering you. You want that pot of brew to be ready to ship before we start doing content with it. So you're basically there though. You're almost at that point where we'll touch on it right now a little bit because we did cover the vessel for pressure fermentation, the floating dip tube, the spunding valve, and how to pressure transfer. So that covers our bases of being the brewer who uses pressure fermentation. But so let's briefly, and I mean real brief, because again, I know I'm taking up all your time, and Todd thinks I'm working. But what the pot of brew is? What's the status on that? Is it?
Well, I have 100 of them in my garage right now. I'm just waiting for a part, just like everything at the beginning, the first project, you find out something hiccups and you need to fix it and you learn about it. So I'm in the process of fixing these things and improve it along the way. So the good news is it worked incredibly well. It's incredible. It's better than expected. What is the most important part of pressure fermentation is leakage, and this thing you have. One of the things, the corny cake is really good because they have a very good lid, a seal, and then most of the time it seals the pressure very well. When you go to a presser like this with an open lid like this and with a big silicone gasket, you have to make sure it's sealed. And there's a lot of connection in here. There are actually 4 connections on top. I got three ball lock posts, one for liquid, one for gas, one for the thermometer, or whatever you want to put it. And of course, the middle one is the pressure relief valve. So the 4th thing on this, traditionally, I would go into bolt the thing on, but then there's a risk of leakage. So I decide to weld them on. I figure out a way to weld. Now, I want to weld them in a way that it doesn't warp the lid. So I had to figure out a way to weld them at low temperature, and I have done it. And I'm happy to report to you that I could weld it on, and it doesn't warp the lid, and it's sealed perfectly. It's done. It takes a little time, but it is now freaking perfect.
I love
it's sealed. And so then. So I'm really, really, really happy with this thing. It's a combination of my life work, because in order to have this, you have to have the most important, have a vessel that's sealed, something that's the right size, easy to open and close, easy to clean, because you can open and clean, but you need to have the perfect floating dip tube in here, because with the floating dip tube you show on your big ball, it won't work in here because that's too big and too strong, and it doesn't fit in the small vessel like this. But my floating dip tube worked really really well in here, and with the built-in flow reducer, it's a game changer, man. Why? Because everything we talk about pressure fermentation, we talk about the cold side of brewing, right? You have to work out the heat before you do that. But with this, you work from the beginning. You work from hot side to cold side to serving time. We can do it all with one of these things, So we can boil it. You process half enough. You can mash in it. You can ferment it in it. You can cold crash in it. You can carbonate it in it. You can pour it. You can do everything with it. It's what I would like to say. I was thinking, this is what I say. The bicycle of home brewing, of fermentation. Why a bicycle? A bicycle is a simple, beautiful thing that has so many purpose and lasts forever, and built together with 100 different parts. When you bolt together, you make it work. And if something breaks, you just fix it, right? And it's very versatile. I like to say this is the bicycle of fermentation. and it's a beautiful thing. And with this, we make home brewing the new home cooking, which means that making beer is like cooking. You can do it because you do it right in your kitchen. You don't need any appliance. You just use your stove, your oven, your refrigerator, and the pot of brew. And you make beer, you make wine, you make kombucha, you make kimchi, you make everything. Basically, the bicycle of fermentation. It's a crazy term, but see, I love crazy word like cheap and cheer, no beer left behind, max headroom.
And the bicycle, I love it. Yeah. But you're not changing the name. That's just the tagline. It's still the pot of brew.
Yeah. But the pot of brew, it's really the bicycle of fermentation, and we make home brewing the new home cooking. Yeah.
I love it. Trong, I absolutely love it. Like I said, I've told you, I can't wait to buy one from you, get my hands on it, because we are, like I said, we have some ideas. Just stay on the lookout at homebrewhappyhour.com. Join our free Facebook group, Homebrew Happy Hour Chub Club, if you're not already in there. That's where I typically make announcements, or sign up for our newsletter, or even better, join our Patreon at patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour and stay really up to date with what we're doing in regards to Brew Day Lives, what monthly recipes we're doing, and all that. But as soon as the pot of brew's up and we've got some content loaded up down the pipeline, we will have that published and announced, and I can't wait. Like people have said before, or they've observed, your passion is contagious, my friend. I love it, and I sincerely appreciate your time today, and I can't wait to get you on the show again.
Let me say this now. I have 100 of these, and of course, as I said before, it's not perfect. There's some flaws to it, but it's cosmetic. So I want to sell the thing for $400, right? Retail for it. But it's something that you open, all you need is ingredient in brew beer. You don't need to buy anything. Everything comes with a pressure regulator. It have grain bag. It have sanitizer caps so that you sanitize your thing. It have everything for it. So I'm thinking, because they think the first 100 of these are not perfect, I'm trying to I offer some early adapter a deal. I don't know what it is yet, but whatever it is, you can get it. And then when the perfect one come out, I swap it out.
Oh, you're too good a guy. You're too good.
So which means that you're going to have two.
Yeah.
You have a two for the price of one. Right, but we'll talk about that later.
I'm finding Todd's credit card real quick. Somewhere. We will. You keep me in the loop on that, my friend. But yes, absolutely, Trong. Thank you so much for. Oh wait, real quick, because people are going to ask, what is the biggest yield you can make in that for all grain? Is it 2 gallon?
2 gallons.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought it was 2 gallons.
2 gallons is a perfect. Don't let the volume fool you, because you can brew it so fast and you can brew again so fast. So with this thing, I can outbrew your 5 gallon or your 7 gallons fermentasaurus from Zilla. I guarantee you.
I know you challenged me. I know. Yeah, you got all aggressive and said, I will prove it. And I said, Trong, I believe you, pal. I believe you, buddy. And again, like you said, it's so versatile. You can transfer from it to a keg if you're going to try to brew again. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. The next episode we have you on, or pardon me, probably not the next, because we'll have you on before that. When this is ready for retail, I will absolutely love to do a showcase video for you, so we can go all over it, because people, I think, would at least be interested to know why you're so passionate about it. When you explained the whole thing to me on one of the many phone calls we've had, I'm like, Trong, I'm sold. I'm sold, Trong. I'm sold. Anyways, but I do, like I said, thank you so much for doing this week's episode with me. I can't wait to have you on again. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
And that will do for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, be our best friend. Leave us a voicemail at 305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntons Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Muntons, give them a try by joining our Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of premium Imperial yeast along with delicious recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.